very, very scary. Okay, let me repeat. Okay, I'm here not to be dictatorial. I just want to remind you that where I come from and interactions I've had with buyers around the world, this stuff that we are looking at is real. It is not just academic, okay? This is real stuff that we're going through, and that's why I'm passionate about it. If I come across as being very forceful and dictative, it is because I've seen buyers lose tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't know what they were doing with supply chain management. Okay? All right? And there's people losing money, bucket loads of money every day because they think they can go online, order products and put it on Amazon and then make some money. So, tonight we're going to have a look at a lot of precise detail. Here is why we are doing what we are doing. It's the factory, stupid. It's the factory, stupid. It is the factory. Let me repeat. All right, what's the name of this unit? Global Supply Chain Management. It's about the factory. It's not about the ship. It's not about the logistics, trade and all of that. It's about the factory. The factory is at the heart of any supply chain. That's why I say this, all right? That's why every week we have spent some time looking at the factory. That is why many of your groups are presenting Factory A versus Factory B. Because supply chain management is about the factory. If you cannot get the right factory or get the factory right, it doesn't matter if you have that perfect insurance, the perfect logistics, the perfect ship. You're going to fail in the long term. It won't be sustainable. Let me repeat, it's the factory, stupid. All right, it is about the factory. Okay? Tonight, if you don't know already, I want you to have a much more granular understanding of what does it cost to play. What do I mean? Cost for you to start finding, negotiating with and ordering from a factory and putting something on Amazon. What does it cost to play? How many of you know someone who is selling items on Amazon or Lazada? Any of you? You don't know anyone? Oh, do you have friends? Don't you know someone that think, oh, I want to do this in the future?
No.
You never ever thought of doing it yourself? Okay, maybe after tonight, you're never going to think about it again. All right? What does it cost to play? And how to play. All right? These are the big questions. These are the themes of basically this whole unit. These are the themes. Next week, we start to look at the big boys and girls. What do we mean? The big multinationals. How do they do it? And for them, it's still the factory. All right? So let's not oversimplify while we're focusing on the factory. It is about the factory, okay? All right? Remember, we are outsourcing to factories in supply chain management often. Global supply chain management. Why do we go global? Because cost of labour is cheaper than it is in developed countries. All right? If the labour cost was the same worldwide, maybe we wouldn't have this globalisation like we have. I asked all of you at the very last minute, outside of expectations and warning that you have to do some homework for this week. That is, I want you to go into a marketplace and get a quotation. How many of you managed to do that? One person, 2, 3, 4. How long did it take you, Ming? Pardon?
It was a group, yeah, it's a group.
How long did it take?
Like 5 minutes, 5 10 minutes. Less than 5 minutes.
Till 5 minutes?
Less than 5 minutes.
Should be less than 5 minutes. Can do it in 30 seconds.
We're just going through everything.
Yeah. Look, I put in wireless earbuds and Lazada. First page that pops up. Okay? All right? So there's a group presenting tonight on 2 factory audits I did in this area. Who's that group? Okay? All right. So more about that later. So now if you did your homework, you'll have some idea of the price range in the marketplace. That's international marketing. Okay? How many of you are studying international marketing? Okay, we're going to connect the two tonight. Okay. All right, digital photo frame. How many of you searched for that? How long did it take you? Less than 5 minutes. Oh, okay, so who's presenting on this tonight? 3 of you. Plus your leader, is that right? Okay, coming. Okay, good. Looking forward to that. All right? So keep in mind, what are the price ranges? Because on the marketing side, if we sell this frame here, 90 ringgit, then the FOB on average should be 1/3, ideally 1/4 of that price you're selling for. By the time you add on shipping, logistics, insurance, customs, everything, 1/3, but better 1/4 to be sustainable. All right, keep that in mind when the groups present their audits tonight. Okay, that's ahead. What I want to cover now, very, very clearly, is 4 topics, but there's key ideas in each of them. And these 4 topics are covered in the video in Udemy. I highly recommend watch that video to solidify your understanding of what we are doing. Okay, we are filming here tonight, and when I get a chance I can edit some of this film. Probably 90% will go on the cutting room floor, and we can put that into YouTube, and then you can have it for your future too. Okay, here are the questions I want you to be a master of. Are we clear on where we're heading now? All right, these are the questions I want you to be a master of. Okay, sourcing feasibility. Is your product a good fit for a factory direct purchasing? What do we mean by factory direct purchasing? Well, okay, let me ask. Okay, you can yell out if you like. What do we mean by factory direct purchasing? Pardon?
No middleman.
No middleman, yes. In other words, you're going direct to the factory. All right, there's no agent in between to take 20% cut of the FOB value. All right. So why would you do that? You would do that when maybe there's a substantial labour component, or there's readily available materials and equipment, sizable volume, no roadblocks with shipping and duties. Okay, there's lots of different reasons to think factory direct. Why do we want to go factory direct? Sometimes buyers say, oh, we want to have more control. If we go direct, then we can tweak the product. Oh, I like this USB, but I want to change the design of it, okay, to make it special. Okay, all right. So here are the obvious costs. Remember, I want you to get your head around how feasible is it to do this sourcing business. All right? Obviously, production, finance and shipping duties. We know that. But what you have learnt in the last 3 weeks are costs associated with things that are not so obvious. Ah, really? Well, what did we covered IP last week, right? And we realised that startups have struggled with it and they have found different solutions for IP. And the groups they have presented have found that some of these startups, they're gone, no longer exist, right? After raising money, then suddenly they have to send a letter saying, sorry, we can't deliver. A lot of people have lost money on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. The startups haven't lost money, it's the people given money have lost money. Okay, all right. Compliance. Okay, so we've got a group up the back doing sustainability, am I right? Right, who's doing the product compliance, product IP? The group over here. Okay, so you need to set up a Skype interview with Alice Poon in St. John. Promise? We do that? Yes or no? I can't hear you. Yes, yes. Okay, good. All right. Very, very important. Compliance. We're going to cover that very quickly. Samples and shipment. Tooling and setup. We talked about tooling. I showed you a video of tooling. All right. Due diligence. Audits. We're going to talk about audits tonight. And of course, due diligence, a lot of that, part of that's audit and part of that's legal. So these are not so obvious. Is it expensive? Well, the good news is finding a supplier and getting a quote is very easy. That's the easy part. Smaller and smaller buyers are creating factory direct relationship because of the internet. But when I talk to factories, more and more of them are interested in going direct themselves and not selling to buyers. They want to become their own sellers in Amazon. And in the end, in some ways, they will actually beat the foreign buyers. Why? Because they own the factory. They have their own product. They know their own product. The bad news, going direct to a factory is not for everybody. It takes a lot of time. How many of you have been inside a factory? Hands up. Half of you. Okay. And even if you've been inside a factory, how many of you could actually organise the production of that factory? Could find problems in that factory? Some of you, maybe. All right? Well, we did cover some of ideas. We're trying to give you ideas in this course about how where can you look to find problems in a factory. Okay, we're trying to help you in this course on that. Finding the right supplier is complex. And because of MOQ barriers, what is an MOQ barrier? Minimum, yes, because factories want you to order 10,000, but you say 1,000. Oh, by the way, I want to order 1,000, but I want 5 different colours. That means, can you do 200 of green, 200 of blue, 200 of black, 200 white, 200 purple? And the supplier goes, go away, please. All right? All right? Huge problem. Bad news, you're cutting out intermediaries. Often, most buyers, they're better off just going for an agent. Or better still, let me give you a strategy now. Let me give you a strategy now. That is, you go to AliExpress. This is your homework for next week. You go to AliExpress, you pick out 5 products, okay? And you find how you can spend $200 US on each of 5 products, that means you invest $1,000 US. All right? So maybe you only, for each of those 5 products, you're ordering 50 units. Okay? And then you put them onto Amazon and see what happens. And maybe 4 of them fail. You keep that one, then you go back and order more of that one that works. And then you replace those 4 with 4 others. And you keep on doing that. You don't have to visit a factory. But what you're doing is you are just playing with the market. You are just testing the market by just pushing stuff through the market. So you're actually focusing on just seeing what the market is buying. And you do low margin and you're not worried about the factory because you're just going through AliExpress, which is a small volume marketplace where you can buy 50 of something. So any of you interested in doing that? That's my first. You'd learn 10 times more by doing that, even before trying to figure out your own factory. Just do that. Waste a few $1,000 US doing that. You'll learn 10 times more than trying to find that one perfect factory for one product.
So AliExpress is like a middleman.
AliExpress is a marketplace for small volumes.
So like, is it considered like
They're factories. Factories put excess quantities onto AliExpress for sale. And you can buy small quantities, a dozen, 20, 30, 40, 50 items. 50 of something. Maybe it's a knife, maybe it's a kitchen spoon, maybe it's a bottle, something plastic that's safe. You don't have to worry about electronics. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this practice is called Amazon FBA, and you reckon it's profitable for us? I mean, if we try to do Amazon FBA, is the name of this practice?
Partly. Oh, you're asking me, is it profitable?
Yeah, of course it depends on the product, of course, but in the long term, can it be feasible?
In the long term, it's not profitable, but you will learn 10 times more by doing this. Just by actually going through and rotating products on and off that work and don't work. And in the end, you go through several cycles. Maybe you spend $5,000. You've tested 25 products, 5 of them work. Then you double down on those 5 that work.
So is this a very B2B platform?
AliExpress is it's a B2C. You buy 10 of something or 50 of something or 100 of something. You don't have to, the MOQ is not 1,000 or 2,000. Okay? All right, so that's one way, and that's a fast track learning. Don't have to visit the factory, hands off, and you actually learn more about, okay, how do we do something in Amazon? That's my best recommendation for anyone that wants to get their hands dirty in this area before you actually start thinking about, well, should I go to the factory? Because there's a lot of bad news. There's a lot of bad news if you want to go direct to the factory without even finding out something about the market you're selling to. All right. Practical stuff tonight. All right, so how much does it cost to go direct to the factory? Okay, in your groups, you have 1 minute. How much in US dollars does it cost? Now, go. Figure it out. It's in front of you. Add it up. You have 50 seconds. Do the calculation. Don't yell it out. Come on. What?
The airplane tickets, the hotel fare.
Well, it's all up here. So, yeah, it's all here. I'm going to turn you all off global supply chain management tonight. Just stick to international marketing.
Yes, pretty much all these.
Okay, so what have we got? Where's group 1? How much?
I said I have to come up with a figure.
Yeah, give me a figure. You haven't figured it out yet. Group 2,
Sir, 4,000 plus.
7,800. Yeah,
Huh?
7,800.
7,800. 7,800. Group 3, Group 3, 8,000. Group 4, Group 4,
7,000. 7,000.
5, Group 5,
8,000.
8, 6, Group 6, 10,000. Group 7, 8,000. Group 8, Group 8, 10,000. US dollars. This is US dollars, not ringgit. Okay, so put your hand up if you're interested. Who's interested in getting started in Factory Direct? Anyone? Why not?
Sir, if the order is huge, then I think you should go for it.
What's the minimum order? What? Okay, if the average is 8 to 10,000, so what is the size of the order you think you need to have if that's going to be your cost?
At least 100,000. I think.
How much?
I mean, like, if the price of the product that we are selling is very small, like for example, just $1 per item, I don't think it's.
Yeah, but give me the revenue, total US dollar revenue.
If like the revenue, we can get at least the same figure of the profit only. Like,
Give me a number. I'm an accountant. Come on, what revenue number? Yes. 40? 40,000.
100K.
40,000 in revenue, 100,000 revenue,
Sir, minimum on the order has to be more than 100K.
150.
150, maybe. I want you to think about it. If you 100,000 revenue, then this cost here is 10%, is 10% of your total revenue. All right? At a minimum, 30% of that revenue is going to be your costs of making. Okay? Suddenly, now your margins are less than 50%. All right? So you can see that, wow, you know, if that's the cost of getting started, you need to put some serious money into what you're sourcing. And if you're going to be serious in what you're sourcing, you better know your international marketing. That is your international marketplace. Right? You better know what sells and what doesn't sell. Like, that's a huge risk, isn't it? You invest all the money, then you put it onto Amazon, and then no one buys it. Right? That's why I'm saying that after tonight, you're going to think, wow, we should start doing this first. Let's get to know the market before we start to think about paying all this money and making it more serious. Like, this is going upstream, but first you need to know your downstream opportunity. That's why you're studying international marketing. Hands up for international marketing. Keep your hand up if you think international marketing is a better class than this class. Okay, great, fantastic, good. All right? But that's not to say that international marketing is not important. International marketing is critical, all right? You need to know the market for your product so you can have that assurance that, yes, I want to spend all this money because I know that once I do all this, get the right factory and everything, I'm going to be able to sell something. Okay, all right. So we haven't talked about that in the first 5 or 6 weeks. We didn't talk about marketing. You with me? But now you got to think, okay, how we go upstream, that is via an agent, via AliExpress, or direct to a factory, depends on, well, what's our downstream strategy? It's connected. They're not separate. They're connected. Okay? You need to match the risk. Okay? If your downstream risk is very high, that is you don't know what you want to sell, then make sure your upstream risk is not high. How do you limit your upstream risk? Just do AliExpress and waste some money on different products and see what happens. So put that into put this big takeaway, your downstream risk and upstream risk. Right? This is your upstream risk and downstream risk. This is your international marketing, and this is your supply chain management. You with me here? They're connected. You need to match the risk. All right? If you've got a lot of risk here, that means you don't know much about your international market, then you make sure you limit your risk here. All right? They're not separate, interdependent, connected. That's why middlemen, our next part, middlemen help you to manage risk. Why? Because they're expert at something. All right? They cost money, but they help you to manage risk. Okay? Middlemen are agents that look after the relationship for you, or they're lawyers that look after all the paperwork for you, or they're auditors that look after the compliance verification for you. All right. So, how many of you know where this is? This is one of the largest marketplaces in the world. Okay, in Hangzhou, just south of Hangzhou, Yiwu. Okay, in Zhejiang province, south of Shanghai. Okay, huge. You can go there and buy 100 of something. You can go and buy 100 of these and walk out with a physical box of 100 of these. And so you can directly put this online. Okay? You can go and buy 100 of these. That's what this marketplace is. Not just one. You go there to buy hundreds. So it's like AliExpress. Just like AliExpress, but in the physical realm. Okay. Right. And these are like the front door of thousands of factories. Okay. Having said that, the stuff you buy here is full of defects. Okay? Rejects, defects, things that were not acceptable quality and rejected by buyers. But the factory still has invested in those rejects, so they'll send them to this market for sale. So you need to know what you're buying. Okay, agents and middlemen. Good, the bad, the ugly. Well, the good is they help soak up your risk. Why? Because they look after the relationship. They look after the logistics, documentation. They're your agent. Okay, fine. The bad. Well, they may tell you that the factory is offering you $25 FOB, when in fact the factory is only offering 15, but the agent's getting a $10 cut. And you don't know because you don't know the factory. So they are opportunistic and they may not allow you to see the factory. The ugly. They may actually say, well, it's our factory, or they actually may switch things. Or hidden commissions, which is very similar to what we're talking about here, barrier builder. Okay, so you can't always trust agents, but it's a fact with everything in life, right? Anyone is an agent. You just need to know what game you're in. And buyer beware. Buyer beware. All right, so here's the big question. How do you spot a trading company? Because often when you go to a trade show, and our group here will see this in person next month, and you'll see lots of booths that will say, oh, we're the factory, but they're not. So you need to be very clear. What you do see at a trade show, and you see these traders, is they'll have lots of different products. They'll have everything because they're trying to catch any buyer, like a big giant fish net. They're trying to catch any buyer. Then they'll say to any buyer, oh, we're the factory. But they're not. They're just a trader. Everyone is a trader in many ways. So you need to focus on booths that just focus on one particular product, and they have evidence that they are the factory. That's very, very important. If you're very serious about going direct and you're at the trade show, then you may ask for ownership papers of the factory or some evidence that they own the factory. Okay? And be explicit that the production location may be audited by you in person, that the location cannot be changed without approval from the buyer. Because some factories will say, oh, we can supply you this, but in the end, they end up outsourcing that production to another factory. Okay? That can compromise the quality of your audit. Okay? So these are things that you need to be clear about in understanding, okay, if you're serious about going to a factory, then you need to check off on all of these items here. Wow, why don't I just go through an agent? Yeah, that's a good idea. Just go through an agent. Pay the 20%. Save yourself the headache and have a good night's sleep. Okay, all right. Here are two big takeaways. At the trade show, be wary if they supply a very large range of products. I've seen it many times. And when you're at the factory, as I said, be very clear that the production location may be audited by you in person and that the location cannot be changed, because they can change location. They can put up fake factories for when you turn up. You show up, see the factory, and then a day later, it could be something else altogether. Okay, how to spot a trading company. Remember, we're talking about middle people, all right? Just got to be clear. It's okay to go through a trading company. You just need to know that you are going through a trading company. And then you vet the trading company for the services they are providing to you. And maybe if you're just sourcing something plastic, maybe going for a trading company is good enough. Okay? Maybe, if there's nothing too much wrong, go with injection moulding of a plastic item like this. Maybe it's good enough. Maybe it's just good enough to go to AliExpress. Okay, other middle people. What are other middle people? There are lawyers. But let me tell you about, how many of you have heard of Credit Eyes? Credit Eyes, that's a company based in Shanghai. So I wrote a contract with them in 2015 to supply to me financial reporting detail of 300 companies that I have interviewed. It cost me money. It cost, I think, about 40 yuan per company. Okay? 150,000 yuan, about. okay, to get that information. And I'm thinking, well, where did that information come from? Where do you think the information came from?
The company, the creditors,
So where does Creditize get the information from?
perfectly.
Close. They go to the government, the provincial governments, because every company in China has to file reports with the provincial governments. Even if they're private, they still have to file a report, like an annual return for a company. Okay, most companies around the world have to supply an annual return, even if they're not publicly listed, but it goes in with the regulator in that country that looks after companies, all right? Because they've got to file tax returns and things like that. So we've got that information, Creditize. We've got data on that. All right, 300 companies, their financial information. If any of you want to do a project on that for a master's thesis or honours, there's lots of interesting information in there. Okay, let's keep moving. By the way, if you can pay a lawyer, the lawyer may charge you $100 to get company financial details, but the lawyers may just go to Creditize and pay them 50 yuan to get that information. You with me here? All right? You could go to Creditize direct, but this is what middle people are about. Because you don't know Creditize, you know now, but put your hand up if you didn't know Creditize before tonight. You see, because you don't know that, you think, oh, the only way I can get information on a company is, the lawyer will do the due diligence, right? All right? But now you know Creditize, you can bypass the middle person.
How much does it cost to get it?
Directly, it costs me 50 yuan per company. Yeah, but a lawyer will charge you $100. Okay?
But is this not public information?
No. It's very confidential. No.
These are private reports that are submitted as part of a company return. So yes, you could go to the provincial government if you know Chinese and spend a day trying to find that information yourself. It's going to cost you much, much more. So that's why you think, oh, lawyer, $100, fine, just get a lawyer to do it. What I'm saying is, you go direct to Creditize, you pay them 1/8 of that, right? And then get them to do it for you.
So, sir, basically every financial information of a company, as in starting from the credit score to the loans or
Balance sheet, profit and loss,
profit and losses, everything.
cash flow, yes. I'm not saying it's all complete, but it's as much information that they have disclosed. Okay, so there's a hack for you. All right, now I've already told you about knives. Put your hand up if you saw the knife video. You all saw the knife video. Oh man. Okay, wakey wakey, it's September now.
It's a pressure thing, right? It's like how much pressure.
Exactly, all right? You don't want me to show it to you again, and I'm not going to waste your time. But, okay, what's the big point about this is that use inspectors.
Unfortunately, the knife is quite blunt, so as you imagine, we started to use the same knife yesterday, and for the whole 1.5 days. So actually, it needs to do.
Yes,
Actually, I'm allowed to open, but please.
No, don't open. That's fine.
No,
it's fine. Okay. Yes. Okay. And so.
So this is actually edge retention chart.
Okay, so you saw the knife video. What is the point of me showing you that? Why do I show you that? What's my point?
The company who's doing the testing is SGS, sir. And it's
Yes.
It's an inspection company.
Yes. Who's teaching who in this video? Who's the teacher and who's the student? Who's the student?
You.
Me. All right? So here, I'm getting a free lesson from an expert without having to go to the factory. You with me here? So this is what I tell buyers. Don't just look at third-party inspectors as, oh, you're the agent going to the factory, I don't want to talk to you. What I tell the buyers is get to know your inspector and get the inspector to teach you as much as you can learn from them. Okay? Why not? Why not? You should know everything about your product. Get them to teach you. The factory's not going to tell you everything. They're probably going to lie to you more than a third-party inspector would. Okay? All right? The inspectors do not have an incentive not to tell you about what they're doing. Okay? All right, so that's why I show you that. Quality control. Remember, these are all in Udemy, the simplified versions of some of these slides, like Mike Bellamy's video 11 in Udemy. Please do watch this. Okay, so what do we mean by quality control? Well, this is taken from AsiaInspection.com, but is now as QIMA, that's QIMA. Very big inspection company, and this is the percentages represent the growth in inspections, or the percentage of inspections in each country of a particular product. And if you look around most countries, garments tend to dominate most inspections. Garments. All right? China, garments. Vietnam, garments. Malaysia, body care, health and hygiene. All right? Thailand, audio and video. So you see in China, even adult garments is still a large portion. Okay? Pakistan, adult garments. India, garments. Bangladesh, garments. Okay? So AsiaInspection.com, they do inspections all around the world. So very, very interesting there. Okay, so what we're talking about now is quality control. All right, here's the big question. Who is responsible? Where does the responsibility begin with quality control? Where does it begin?
From raw materials.
No. No.
From raw materials.
No.
The inspectors?
No. No, you've already had your shot. Right? Come on. Where does it start?
So when you first purchase the raw materials to make your production,
No, we're not talking about the physical flow. I want you to think, where does the responsibility for quality control, where does it start? Where does the responsibility lie?
The buyer itself.
The
The buyer itself.
The buyer, yes. Quality control begins with the buyer. It's something you can never outsource. Yeah, you outsource the physical inspection of it, but at the end of the day, it's the buyer. The buyer is responsible because the buyer tells the inspector what they should look for. The buyer sets the AQL limits. Okay? So maybe I'm a buyer and I set a limit for USA. Oh, they're very stringent there, so my AQL limit is 1%. Oh, I'm shipping to maybe Eastern Europe. Okay, the standards are lower. So AQL, I allow for 5% defects. You with me here? All right, the buyer chooses what the limits are. Okay, no one else. The buyer chooses what colour an item is. For example, and you can write this in the contract, that we want 1,000 of these bottles and each of them have to be fire engine red. Fire engine red. Do you know what fire engine red is? What colour is that?
cylinder color.
No. It could be this colour. This is a fire engine. It could be this colour. Or it could be this colour. Or it could be this colour. You cannot just say, oh, we want fire engine red on a product. You with me? As a buyer, you need to be so darn specific.
There will be a Pantone board, as in.
Yeah, you either use the Pantone board, or you say it needs to be this red under the midday sun at, all right? Because the colour changes under different light. But you've got the Pantone board, we understand that, all right? So point is, it starts with the buyer. You cannot expect an inspector to do all your quality control if you are not doubly clear about what your standards are. All right, so your Pantone colour, now the inspector has something to compare that colour with. But inspector tries to compare, oh, this red here with the fire engine red. Now, which fire engine did the buyer choose to compare with? I don't know. You don't know either. The inspector doesn't know. In other words, the quality, the standards begin with the buyer. Inspectors, quality inspectors, are only agents of the buyer. They don't own the product. They just do what you ask them to do. Okay? So quality control, there's some terminology here, but I just want you to be very, very clear that we can start to think about minor and major and critical defects. Because it may be that you accept for one country, you may be in electrical, you want 0 critical defects. Maybe you allow 2.5% minor and 1% major defect at AQL level. Okay, we're coming to that in a minute. All right, so we're going to have a look at that very shortly. Now, ISO, many of you know about, that's the International Standards Organisation, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that next week and the week after. We're going to talk about how Apple manages its suppliers. Okay, all right. Golden sample versus a production sample. Yeah, factories will always give you a golden sample. That is their perfect sample. But what you need to know from the factory is, can they reproduce that golden sample? Often, once you put your order in, you pay the money, and the production sample they give you is nothing like the golden sample. So be very, very aware of that. You'll see lots of golden samples at the trade show. It doesn't mean that it's going to be exactly the same as the production sample. Okay. All right. You need to understand the difference between testing, inspection versus audit. And we've got 2 groups tonight that are presenting on the audit, the factory audit. Okay. All right. So, couple of calculations now, and have you got a pen and paper ready? Someone yawns. All right, pen and paper. It's a calculation now. All right. All right. There are 3 steps. There are 3 steps to figuring out how do we check for a quality standard in a factory. Okay. Step 1 is the lot size. So, for example, the lot size is between 3,000 and 10,000 pieces, and you need to determine the inspection level. So the inspection level is how detailed the inspection needs to be. Okay, we're not going to go into that detail, but some product categories require a much higher inspection level than other product categories. Okay, so let's just assume that the inspection level is 2. And so what this table shows you is if we're going between 3,000 and 10,000 and the inspection level is 2, then our sample size code letter is L. L for Libya. Sorry, L for Libra. Okay, Libra, L for Libra. Okay? Okay, so that's step 1 and step 2. Then we go to step 3, and that's where we will set our AQL. So an AQL is acceptance quality limit. If we're over that limit, then a product is not accepted. What do we mean by that? Well, let me just go through and explain the table to you. So we're at L, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, L. Okay, we've got L here, right? L. All right. Okay, L. And so here, if we're doing 3,000, 10,000, we need to pick out a minimum of 200 units. So if I was in the factory and I was testing your product, you had an order of 10,000, the minimum I would pull out is 200 randomly. Okay, I want to look at 200 units. So what do I do with those 200 units? Well, I need to test them for I need to run various tests. If it's electronics, we need to do a few things. Like the power bank, we need to test for milliamp hours, right? Okay, when I hold up a power bank, what do you say? Sand. Okay, good. All right, you got it. All right, so at L, 200. All right, so now we want to find if there's 2.5% for major defects and 4% for minor defects, what are the AQL limits? That's a question to you now. Please take 60 seconds to calculate. All right, we just pulled out 200. I want to know, as an inspector of your product, let me repeat, I've just ordered 10,000. I want an inspection level of 2. So therefore the inspector is going to pull out 200. And I want 2.5% for major defects, 4% for minor defects. So as an inspector, I need to know how many defects can I pull out of that 200 and still say pass.
5.
No, do your calculations. All right? We need 2 numbers. You're not listening. We need 2 numbers. One for the major defects, and I need one for minor defects. How many major defects can I find and still say to you, the buyer, oh, it's okay, you can proceed? How many minor defects can I find and still say to you, buyer, yes, let's proceed with this, out of 200? That's what you have to calculate now. No, calculate. Don't just put your hand up. Calculate. As a group. You got... Do you know what you have to do? What role am I playing? Who am I? I'm the inspector. All right? So I need to know how many can I pull out, minor, major defects, and still say to you, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, please still go ahead. With me? What's the limit? Have you done the calculation? All right? Do you know what to do? Did you work it out?
Yes.
All right? So how much for the major defects?
So 5 units.
Equals how much? Remember, major is 2.5%. So therefore, we go down to... Hands up. What did you say? How many? 5. Did you all say 5? Yes. Everyone said 5? And how many for minor? 8. Let me remind you, we are at L out of 200. You're all wrong. Okay? I can pull out more than 5 and still say, let's pull the trigger and go ahead with the order.
Is it 10?
11 and 15.
Wait a minute, are you asking me a question or you've done the calculation and you know the answer. So groups, sorry, you need to focus here, okay, because you all gave me the wrong answer. So two things. Number one, I haven't explained this to you properly, or number two, you're not focusing on this task. So which is it? Okay, so focus, come on. We need two numbers please. Write it down, two numbers from every group. Have we got it? Do you know, at the back, you know what we're doing here? Okay, all right. Nikhil, I think you better pull them into line. You're the one that's, you got a good mind there. I think they could use some of your mind. Okay? Two numbers at the back. Have we got two numbers? I'm the inspector. I need your help. Okay? I want to know how many major and minor I can pull out and still say to you, Mr. Miss Buyer, go ahead with the order. Come on. Suddenly it's 11. Sorry, how many for major? 10. How many for minor? 14. Am I right? Is this right? I want to know, is this correct? All right, how do you know? Because here's the 2.5% and you go down to the L, and so if there's 10, pass. If you get one more and 11, you tell the buyer, sorry, we have to fail this shipment. You with me? Okay. So what about at the 4% for the minor? 14 can still pass, but 15 fail. Okay. All right. Okay. What is the big takeaway? Who is determining these standards? Is it the inspector or the buyer? It's a buyer. And what do you think the buyer's assessment depends on? It depends on, I'll give you a hint. There's another unit that you are studying. What does it depend on? Come on. The international market. It depends on which market you're selling to. Because in some developed countries, they have rigorous standards and the customers will sue you if there's any little problem with the product. But then in other markets, you can get away with a lot. Wow. Okay? But you, the buyer, you're making these judgments, you're making these decisions. Of course, you work with the inspector to come to some agreement about these standards. But that is some of the procedural logic you need to go through when you're working with inspection companies. Wow. How many of you have seen this before? First time? Okay. All right. What does this depend on? It depends on the buyer, and then that depends on the international market. Oh, big on international marketing tonight. Man, when's your next international marketing class? Yeah, you better go in there and just, stir it up a little bit. Okay. All right. Here's some examples of some of the data from KEMA across different countries about the percentage of times where product orders have actually surpassed, they've gone beyond acceptable quality limits. In other words, they've failed. They have failed the limits. Cambodia, 41%, Pakistan, 34%, India, Turkey, China, Thailand, South Africa. Okay? That changes from year to year and quarter to quarter, and it may, okay, That's in total, but maybe if we look at electrical, we have a different ranking, textiles, a different ranking again, all right? So I just want to show you that when you see data like this, now you know what this going beyond acceptable quality limit percentage means, okay? It's a percentage of times that when I did this audit, we got 11 instead of 10, that we got 15 instead of 14. Ah, wow, wow. Okay, so we're finishing up here, all right? If you want to go factory direct, if you're very, very serious, then you also need to do all of these things here. That is pre-production, that costs money, test order, and pre-production third-party audits. That's what two groups are presenting tonight on the audits of the factories that I did for buyers, okay? A test order, then a run to the test order, full production, post-production. Wow. I'll be happy to just give 20% to an agent to do it for me. Put your hand up if you're thinking, that's on your mind now. That's a smart move. Don't think you're smart by going direct. Because you need to know that there's so many steps you need to take care of. All right, we've got two groups presenting audits tonight. I want you to think, when you go to an inspection company like Asia Quality Focus or QIMA or SGS, they'll ask you, oh, do you want a factory audit? Do you want an environmental sustainability audit? Do you want social responsibility audit? I would like all three, please. Oh, okay, that will be $900 US. Oh, sorry, can I just have a factory quality audit? I just want to know if the factory can make my product. Oh, that will be $499. Oh, yeah, but we've got some lab tests that we need doing because we need to pass the FCC because we're going to the USA. Oh, that will cost you another $300 to get lab tests done. And suddenly you're into the thousands of, depending on what product. Are you with me here, right? I'll tell you a true story, all right? I told you about the guy that contacted me and told me that one of the Asia inspection auditors, they failed on some of their duties in quality control and he wanted me to recommend someone else. And I said, well, I'll recommend this company from Germany, TUV. How many of you have heard TUV? Yeah? And so the buyer went to TUV because TUV was going to not only do the factory audit, but also they can do the lab testing, all in one place. Then the buyer came back to me and said, oh, they're too expensive. And I'm thinking, buyer, what do you want? What do you expect? All right? And so I told this buyer, why don't you, they're doing the hair curler wand, right? The hair curling wand, right? Made out of Wanzhou, south of Zhejiang province, okay? Why don't you bring the factory down to Shenzhen? The factory FOB may be a little bit higher, but you're closer to a greater range of inspection services and get things done a little bit cheaper on that side. So that's the suggestion I gave to the buyer at the time. Okay, all right, so you need to think. There's audit, there's pre-production inspection, during production, all right, supervision. There's so many different stages you need to think about. So these are all risk areas, and it may depend. If you're making a plastic bottle, maybe most of this doesn't matter because not much can go wrong. It either holds water or it doesn't. All right? But if you're making a power bank, okay, now you need to think about, well, we need to do more of this. Okay? But at the end of the day, you, the buyer, have to do this. Okay. P chart, that's just a QC chart that you can ask a factory, can you give me the QC chart for a particular product for the last 40 days? To let you... You can ask the factory to, can we have a look at your chart for the last 40 days for a particular product? that's a good way of getting information about does the factory, okay, map the quality control from day to day. It doesn't have to be your product, could be any product. And then that shows that that factory has actually got some continuous improvement or some procedure programs in place. Okay, there are the concerns here. So third-party support, this is something you can have a look in the video. Mike Bellamy talks about that in video number 14. Because by now, I've talked you out of doing factory direct, and maybe you get all these third parties that do it for you, and they're all going to take their little piece of the pie.
It's very expensive to hire them.
Yes, it all adds up. So you need to be sure about your product. You need to be sure about your international markets. Otherwise, none of this is worth it. You have to make revenue. In some ways, this whole unit is about cost. Do you know what I mean? Like, everything we talk about is costing you money. All right? It's not until you market something and sell something that you make money. You with me here? All right? Okay. Yes, and this is more generic, this is not specific to supply chain management, but any third party that you pay to do something for you, then you need to validate who they are, do they have references, how good a job are they at doing what they're doing, etc., etc. Some of you are probably asking, well, O'Connor, Global Supply Chain Management, you don't talk about logistics. Yeah, we don't talk much about logistics because at the end of the day, it's not about getting the logistics right, it's getting the factory right. It is about the factory stupid, all right? What do we mean? Efficiencies and sustainability begins with the factory. You can always change the logistics. You can always tweak the logistics. That's not a big deal, okay? But the factory depends on the relationship. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the owner. It depends on so many factors. And you can get locked in with a factory, but you don't always have to get locked in with logistics. So that's why I don't see, this is not a huge risk area. It's something to be aware of, but it's something easily that you can outsource. If you're having a small order, you can actually hire a third party to do the, what do they do it? The pre-packaging. In other words, they just hire 1/3 of container and then they put your order into that 1/3 to share with 2 other thirds from someone else. Okay, there are services that do that. So you don't have to buy the whole container yourself. Okay. All right, these are other third parties. And finally, our group that's doing compliance over here. So who's, yeah, doing compliance. You need to have a talk with this lady here, Alice Poon, okay? We need to set up, you have a Skype, you have an interview of her and find out what's going on there. But Product IP, do your research, find out more about that very, very interesting company. So I know this guy here, he speaks at Global Sources often, and Alice goes to the Global Sources often too, so that's good. Okay, so here are the questions I leave for you. How many of these could you answer now? Have a look. Have a look at these. How many of those questions can you answer? Because that's your takeaway tonight. How many can you answer? Okay? So when you're reviewing the material for the quiz, or if you're looking at the Udemy video, you need to be able to answer these questions. Okay? What is the minimum cost for factory direct? What are some of the non-obvious costs? How to spot a trading company? How can you spot a trading company? Quick.
The range of products.
The range of products, yeah, exactly, yes. Which middlemen are critical? Lawyers, yeah, sort of. Auditors, possibly, yes. Okay, which middlemen can you learn from? Inspectors, auditors, yes. Lawyers won't teach you. Lawyers know that it's their IP not to tell you much, okay? All right. Quality starts with the buyer, yes. And then that depends on international market, yes. Okay, now we're getting there, right? All right. What is AQL? Acceptable quality limit. Okay. What are some of the common audits? Factory audit. Financial statement audit. Yeah, that's accounting audit. We're in supply chain management. Okay. Well, that's a due diligence audit. Yes. Okay. And then inspection, product inspection. Right. Social responsibility. All right. Environmental responsibility, environmental risk. Okay. Third party support. Watch video 14. What is COC? Class, most important question of the night. What is COC? Okay, there's one group that's looking at that area. Right? And look out for that when the two groups are presenting on the audits tonight. Okay? All right, so that finishes the material for night, but I hope by providing these questions, it gives you the focus of the main things you need to be taken away, okay? Thank you very much. We're going to have a break and then we've got two groups to present.